Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to Casual Conversation with GNA. And today we are not together in the same room.
Yeah.
So it got a little late on us. We were busy doing things, um, and so we just decided to do a late one, and we are gonna just kind of talk about the Banshee. I mean, I've never heard I've kind of heard of it before, but it wasn't like I was knowledgeable of it. So, I was like, "Okay, this is interesting," especially because it's a part of the Irish beliefs, right?
Folklore.
Like folklore, yeah. So that's why I thought, "Oh, this might be interesting," because I was looking up Irish folklore and there's a lot. I was surprised. And so, yeah, so I thought this one was interesting since we're not very familiar. And so, yeah, let me say hi to some people here. Tales told in the dark. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Cowie. How are you? And we have Miss Ozzy. How are you, Miss Ozzy? She's our friend. Thank you. Yes, please share out. Leave us a comment, come in the chat and ask questions. But yeah, we're gonna get into it because we have a few things on it. So I'm gonna start, and then Eileen is gonna share some stories on people that have had encounters. So here we go. All right. So the Banshee is an Irish city. I don't know what that means. Scots Gaelic Bansith, the woman of fairies, supernatural being in Irish and other Celtic folklore, whose mournful neighing or wailing screaming of lamentation at night was believed to foretell the death of a member of the family or a person who heard the spirit. In Ireland, banshees were believed to warn only families of pure Irish descent. That was interesting because it kind of sounded like the Llorona to me when I heard of it at the beginning. So I was like, oh, wait, this is kind of familiar to La Llorona in Mexico, right? The woman that weeps, but it doesn't have an omen to it. It's just a scary thing. She just appears, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of people have said that she tries to like take men, like drown men or maybe even kids. But this one's more of like a um I guess, warning to people that something is going to happen to somebody, which is scary. But I did ask my mom about if we had something like that in Mexico, and she said that um, something. If what is that bird called? Do you remember what that bird is called? It's like a singing bird that does different tones. Like it does different types of, as like I guess songs. And she said that in her where when she was young, they would say that if that bird would sing to you, then that would mean that somebody was gonna die. So I guess that's the only thing that I can kind of familiarize this with. But yeah, it's still pretty interesting. All right, here we go. Sometimes she has long, streaming hair and wears a great cloak over a green dress, and her eyes are red from continual weeping. She may be dressed in white with red hair and ghastly complexion. According to a first-hand account, um, the size of the banshee is another physical feature that differs between regional accounts. Through Though some accounts of her standing unnaturally tall are recorded, the majority of tales that describe her height state that the banshee's stature is short, anywhere between 1 foot and 4 feet. Her exceptional shortness often goes alongside the description of her as an old woman, though it may also be intended to emphasize her state as a fairy creature. Sometimes the banshee assumes the form of some sweet singing virgin of the family who died young and has been given the mission by the invisible powers to become the hair harbinger, sorry, harbinger of coming of wait, I lost my hold on, you guys. Okay, of coming doom to her mortal kindred. Or she may be seen at night as a shrouded woman crouched beneath the trees, lamenting with a veiled face, or flying past the moonlight, crying bitterly. And the cry of this spirit is mournful beyond all other sounds on earth, and betokens certain death to some members of the family, whether it's heard in silence or at night. So that's pretty interesting. She kind of sounds like a witch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if she's flying, I don't know if they meant flying through like the moon, but you can see her crouched down. Like that's creepy to me. If you see somebody crouched down,
Yeah, that's
like
creepy.
no, especially like in the middle of nowhere. No. Hi, Chica. How are you? So, yeah, and so she sounds like a witch and La Llorona at the same time. Um, but yeah, all right. So, but they say that she is part fairy. So, um, she's supposed. So people believe that she is to be some sort of fairy, and she is to be affectionate to certain families as they are heard to sing mournful lamentations about their houses by night. Whether any of the family labors under a sickness, which it is to end by death. But no families which are not an ancient or noble stock are believed to be hindered, hindered
Hmm.
with a fairy privilege. So that's another thing that I read that was really interesting because she was saying they were saying that it only happens to Irish descendants. So it's only people that are Irish, I guess, that kind of encounter her. So I thought that was interesting. That it's only, you know,
Local.
happening to the to that certain um people, I guess. So yeah. Hi, Miss Lakea. Thank you for stopping by. Hey, I can never say the name. Ren, but he told me to say it short. Hexen Ray, right? I think. Hi, Louise. Welcome. Yeah, so it's interesting. So it is often stated that the Banshee laments only the descendants of pure Malaysian stock of Ireland, sometimes clarifies as surnames prefixed with O and Mac. And some accounts even state that each family has its own Banshee. One account, however, also included the Geraldines, as they had apparently become more Irish than the Irish themselves, countering the lore ascribing banshees exclusively to those Malaysian stock. Other exceptions were the Bunworth banshee, which heralded the death of Reverend Charles Bunworth, a name of Anglo Saxon origin, and the Russmore Banshee, which supposedly heralded the death of a member of the family of Baron Rosemore, whose ancestry was predominantly Scottish and Dutch. When several banshees appear at once, it indicates the death of someone of great or holy. The tale sometimes recounted that the woman though called a fairy, was a ghost, often of a specific murdered woman or a mother who died in childbirth. See, that's weird because now it's just like showing up to these people, right? To these, they even like with last names, like it shows up. And so, but it's also said that it's generational. So if one person in your generation um encountered it, then that means that other people are going to continue to encounter it throughout. Don't fall asleep, Eileen. I can see your eye I can see your eyes shutting a little bit. Hi,
It's late.
Erismona? Mana? Hey, Chad Smith, how are you? Thank you for coming by. All right, so yeah. So far, that's what we have. Visits from Banshees. Okay, so I'm just going to read this and then Eileen's going to get into some interesting encounters. So there were some reports of infrequent sightings of the death messenger. Part of the legend claims that the Banshee will vanish inside a cloud of smoke or mist if she believes anyone saw her. The only evidence that she was ever there is the sound of the flapping of wings. No matter how scary the cry of the Banshee is, the Irish do not strictly believe that she is ever actually responsible for the death that would follow shortly after. There are reports from the Middle Ages that this Celtic creature would actually serve to protect pure and noble individuals if death were to claim them. One of the best known cases occurred on February 21st, 1437. An Irish seer who predicted the monarch's assassination by the Duke of Atholl approached King James I of Scotland. Not long after this approach, the king found himself trapped inside a sewer tunnel where he was fatally injured. There were rumors that this seer was an Irish banshee, although she gave no cry. That's pretty interesting. The name of the banshees varied between places. In Leinster and Banshee Whale could supposedly shatter glass. By contrast, in County Kerry, the banshee sings a pleasant song and is not as frightening in appearance. In County Tyrone, the sounds of the banshee were like the wooden planks striking each other. And on Rithlin Island, there were reports that the sound, like the combination of a woman crying and the call of an owl, occurs before a notable death. Over several generations, many high-ranking families blended, so many believed that the Banshee evolved to become an actual member of the majority of noble and royals Irish families. Tactics like immigrating did little to offset the spirit, as she would often travel the world to be with them. Dude, like you cannot get rid of her. Okay? Like, what do you do? What do you do if she's like, I don't care if you migrate, like I'm gonna go.
That's
Follow
creepy.
you. But see, and some people don't see her as a bad thing, like as an omen. It's more of, oh, she's warning us. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to be careful on where we go and what we do because something can happen. So I thought that that was a good, I guess, a way to see it. But have people escaped it if they've seen it or heard it before? Has there been survivors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are still reports of sightings to this day. One occurred in June of 2014. What began as an apparent cat call in the middle of the night quickly developed into an apparent terrifying sighting of a banshee. The sound metamorphed into a shrill scream that seemed to be getting closer and closer. The witness involved investigated from within the relative safety of indoors and reported seeing a woman standing out in the open, head back, screaming loudly enough to cause irritation to the ears of the witness. After several more minutes, a single police patrol car arrived to the scene, but there was not anyone outside. The attending police officers actually suggested the possibility of Banshee seeing on the same night there was a death in the family of the sole witness. But over time, banshees were relegated to the past, a being in folklore. But ancient stories are still told around the hearth about mean women appearing just before a notable death that occurred in Ireland and other Celtic lands. So I don't know. I mean, even the cop knew. Okay, the cop showed up and he was like, "Lady, this is a banshee. Okay, like you need to be careful." I don't know. Like, that's crazy that even the cops know what's going on, right? And
Yeah.
they know about it. So, I don't know. That's yeah. So that's what I have in the history. Alien's gonna get into some interesting encounters. And if you guys have any like stories that you want to share, you can put them in the comments and we can read them as well. So yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Eileen.
So getting into the stories, here's the first one. I remember being told as a young child of an uncle who was walking home on a cold and blustery night. He was probably 3 sheets to the wind after partaking of a snifter to keep the cold out. On arriving home, he told my grandmother that he had tried to comfort an old woman he had met along the way. Describing her, he said, the old woman was dressed in black with a veil over her face,
That's creepy.
was crying and wailing outside the house. Every time he went over to her, she moved away, but all the while kept pointing at the house. My grandmother, with all her knowledge of the old Irish mythology and legends, knew straight away that what this old lady represented, and hurried my uncle to bed, reassuring him that she herself would have a look for the old woman. Needless to say, she didn't dare do such a thing. Then, sure enough, only 3 days after this strange encounter, my grandmother's brother died peacefully in his sleep. As children, we used to plague my uncle to recount the story of the night he tried to invite the Banshee in for tea.
That's crazy.
Thoughts on that story?
So it took her uncle. That
That's
was it that
crazy.
night? Was it that night? Or
It
was it does it
was
take a few days?
3 days after.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sad. I mean,
Okay.
can you bargain? Can you be like, you know what? Like, I will give you, like, I will leave something for you. I don't know, like some fruit, but do not take any of my family. Like, is this something that you
Some
can,
fruit.
dude? Like, what else? I mean, I'm not gonna like throw my goat out there. You can take a chicken, but do not take my family. Like, I don't know.
Take a chicken. Eggs are
Like what,
expensive right now. You want a chicken?
right? Like what do you want, lady? Like, do not come to my house.
Yeah. So, that was that story. Here's another one. My mother, when a young girl, was standing looking out the window in their house at Black Rock near Cork. She suddenly saw a white figure standing on a bridge which was easily visible from the house. The figure waved her arms towards the house, and my mother heard the bitter wailing of the banshee. At last, some seconds. No, my apologies. It lasted some seconds, and then the figure disappeared. Next morning, my grandfather was walking as usual into the city of Cork. He accidentally fell, hit his head against the curbstone, and never recovered consciousness.
That's crazy.
What?
So this is always like so far it's been people indirectly, like so people that hear them or see them, and then a family member passes away, not themselves, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Ooh, it's giving chills.
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
story number 3. In March 1900, my grandmother was very ill, and one evening the nurse and I were with her arranging her bed. We suddenly heard the most extraordinary wailing, which seemed to come in waves around and under her bed. We naturally looked everywhere to try to find the cause, but in vain. The nurse and I looked at one another, but made no remark. As my mother did not seem to hear it, my sister was downstairs sitting with my father. She heard it and thought some terrible thing had happened to her little boy who was in bed upstairs. She rushed up, and found him sleeping quietly. My father did not hear it. In the house next door, they heard it and ran downstairs, thinking something had happened to the servant. But the latter at once said to them, "Did you hear the banshee? Mrs. P must be dying." And I guess that was it for that story.
So they kind of like felt that somebody was dying. Like, I don't know. That's weird.
Okay, here's another one. A few years ago, a curious incident occurred in a public school in connection with the belief in the banshee. One of the boys happened one of the boys happening to become ill was at once placed in a room by himself where he used to sit all day. On one occasion, he was being visited by the doctor. He suddenly started up from his seat and affirmed that he had heard somebody crying. The doctor, of course, who could hear or see nothing, came to the conclusion that the illness was slightly affected his brain. However, the boy, who appeared quite sensible, still persisted that he heard someone crying, and furthermore said, "It is the banshee, as I have heard it before." The following morning, the headmaster received a telegram saying that the boy's brother had been accidentally shot dead.
That's sad. That is so, so sad. But like
I
I
know.
said, like there's nothing you can do. It just happens. Like you can't prevent it,
I know.
you
That's
know?
what it
Like
seems like.
I feel like it's kind of like warning you, like, hey, get ready. I mean, I don't know. I don't
But
know.
then, like, and the crazy part is, like, you don't know who it's gonna hit, Like,
Yeah, so it's not like you can go and be there, right?
yeah, that's creepy, man.
But that's like, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. Hey, look who's here. Nathaniel Robinson. You remember him?
Hey.
You
Yeah.
remember him? Thanks
Yeah.
for stopping by. Thanks for coming in. Of course, we are skeptic friendly, and everybody in the chat is as well. So, yes. All right.
Okay. So here's another one. From the 1940s, we have two spooky accounts of what seemed to be banshees or something very similar. The first happened along a dark cemetery road called Old Howard Street in the town of Fulton Place. It was here that an elderly man was suddenly bedridden by some mysterious debilitating disease, after which scores of squawking crows began to congregate around the home for reasons no one could fathom. One evening, when the man had visitors over to see him in what seemed to be his last hours, there was apparently a knock at the door, and one of the visitors opened the door and saw an old hag like woman with long white hair and a long white dress, who was wringing her hands and sobbing, only to turn to come rushing at the house with an ear splitting scream before vanishing into thin air. According to the story, the old man died just a few hours later.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That is so creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, could it be that it's just a coincidence? Could it be that people are just kind of like already, but I don't know, like I don't know. Like do you, or maybe you're in your mind you feel like you think you hear something but there's really nothing there, or you can,
I mean, that
but
could be a
see,
possibility.
but that's the thing with that all these people are hearing stuff and then boom, something happens, like something catastrophic, like something sad happens.
Yeah.
And but this has been happening to like a lot of different people. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, it gets kind of like you could be like, okay, it could be a coincidence, right? Some like
Yeah.
this man, he was sick, and then there was this. weird, creepy woman that comes to the door, and then all of a sudden, like the next day or whatever, he passes away. I mean, he was already sick. So, but I don't know. Are you getting scared?
Yeah.
You're looking around like you hear something.
Hey, I don't wanna hear anything.
Hey, but see, you have a lot of like animals out there. You have like the crazy cats that be like making some creepy noises. So you can just brush it off as that.
Yeah, and then I have 2 dogs inside, right?
Hey, Juice will tell you if there's something there.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. All
So,
right.
here's another story. The other account comes from a woman in the town of Bogside who claimed the encounter had been witnessed by her grandfather and his son. The grandfather had been having severe pain in his tooth at the time, but had been putting off seeing a dentist about it. One evening, the son was walking along when he heard wailing sound coming from down the street, which seemed to be coming from a hunched over figure he looked to be a crying child. But when he drew closer, he soon saw was actually hideous, wizened old woman. As the son approached, the ancient-looking woman cried out and vanished. The son was sure that the lady had been a banshee and tried to warn his father to go see a dentist, but he died before he could. Such strange reports continued all the way up to more modern times. One poster on Reddit says that her mother once relayed a terrifying experience to her. What do you think about that one?
So see how in that case, the son knew that it was the
Yeah,
dad. So to me, that kind of like, okay, if somebody's already going through something, is this something that like if somebody's already sick, then you kind of know, oh, it might be this person because they're
yeah,
already sick. But I don't know. That's that's crazy. And the dad, but it didn't say like what the dad passed away from or what the toothache
yeah,
was.
it didn't, huh?
I don't know. That's creepy too. That's I don't know,
Um,
that's crazy.
so here's another one. Some people believe in banshees and only some families get them. I live in Ireland. My mother comes from a very old Irish family with written history going back centuries. They get visited by paranormal spirits in numerous ways, but one of those is a banshee. She had heard about them like when her uncle died and her father was visited that night. The first visited her after she got married in the middle of the night. It started wailing at the top of the stairs at her bedroom. My father got up and noticed the bedroom door ajar. He went out to the stairs and caught a glimpse of it before it disappeared and the wailing stopped. Before morning, she got a phone call her father had died. I believe it appeared twice more over the years, the last time in January this year. As she walked her dog, a howl came from nearby. She knew what it was and ran back home. Our very close friend and neighbor dropped dead suddenly the next morning. Most don't believe, and it seems people don't get these death warnings anymore. So most joke about it. I'm naturally skeptic I'm naturally skeptical person about anything, but in our family, the even mention of a banshee will send a shiver up our spine. We don't question it and we don't joke about it.
That's scary.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
creepy,
man.
dude. And you know what that so okay. So these things can be inside your house too?
I know, like,
Because she was saying she saw it in the stairs, right?
yeah, man.
So, I don't know about all that. Like,
I
do not like,
know.
who let her in?
I
Like,
know,
that's
man.
creepy. And
That's
then she said she
creepy.
was walking and that she heard a dog howling. Okay, that's because look, tales told in the dark. I get cold chills when I hear dogs howling in my yard. I do not like to hear dogs howling. And it's not often that you hear a dog howl, right?
Yeah, and I
I
think,
mean,
like, if you think about it, they usually do that when they hear a noise that's really high pitch,
mhm.
and
Like
it,
like
like,
an ambulance?
yeah, and it hurts their ears, so that's why they'll howl, because it's, like, very high pitch and they're just like, "Ah," like it hurts them.
Mhm.
So, what if that's what happened, what if the dog heard something and that's why it was howling, you know?
Yeah, that's a
Just a
possibility,
thought.
and, like, I mean, dogs are very sensitive. I think that they can see things that we can't, and so, I first in that sense, it makes me feel safer because I know that, um, they will kind of see things and kinda warn me, and I'll be like, "Alright, like, this is weird." Like, I
Yeah.
have to, like, get my prayers on, and I gotta, like, do
Yeah.
something because this is not cool. Yeah, and then, like, the dogs see death. You know what? That's creepy if they do, like, don't. Dogs are so sweet, but that's scary, though. Um, I mean, even cats, though, I feel like cats are way more sensitive than dogs. Um, but definitely, like, I feel like animals have that sense, right? That we don't.
Yeah.
And it's cool, but it could be creepy because I used to have a cat that would creep me out all the time because she would always just wander off, like, looking around the room and, like, it would freak me out. I'd be like, "Don't do that. Don't look around the room. There's nothing there." Yeah, dogs are awesome. And cats, yeah.
Hey, you're
Alright.
just like, "Hey, look at me, man, focus on me."
"Hey, what? Hey." Try to, like, pet them and try to pet them and, like, keep them happy so that they don't, like, scratch their belly, like, don't look around.
Don't look around.
Yeah.
Okay. As a child, I remember my grandmother telling me that my grandfather had taken ill in the back room of their house. She was attending him when she heard a loud banging on the front door and left my grandfather to go answer it. She told me that as she approached the door, she could hear a sobbing noise coming from outside, but on opening the door, there was no one on the other side. She immediately went back to my grandfather, finding him stone dead in the bed. Fast forward to November 2001, I was in my grandmother's house. She had only been given a few days to live, and my father thought it was a good idea to come out and say our last goodbyes.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I think
Mm-mm.
this is the second part to it. Hold on. Rather unfortunately, she was going through a slow, painful death. I remember going to her bedroom and feeling very cold. I knew that the few days were more realistically a matter of hours at the most. As my grandmother's breathing became more shallow, my father said it was probably better that I sit in the front room. He called my aunt's boyfriend and asked him to come and pick me up. While I was waiting, I heard a knock on the door. I assumed it was my aunt's boyfriend. As I approached the door, I could hear crying. As
Mm-mm.
I
Mm-mm.
touched the lock to open the door, I suddenly felt a chill go down my spine. There was no one there. Almost instantaneously, I heard a mixture of prayers and sobbing coming from the back room. I knew she was gone. As I closed the door, I saw a glimpse of what can only be described as a tall, thin woman sitting crying on the neighbor's wall. The experience stayed with me forever. Creepy.
Dude, I'm scared. Like, that's so scary. And,
That
like, why does
is.
she knock? Why does she knock on your door?
I know. That's
And,
scary,
like
man. Like,
and, like,
stop.
these people don't even open the door, and then, like, it still happens.
I know.
Like like I said, what can you do so it doesn't happen? Like, is there or maybe it's just warning you, "Hey, it's, like, time." I don't know. I don't know. I don't no, no.
I know. It's
Have you
creepy,
heard of the
man.
Jerusalem cricket? No, I don't think we
No.
have. I don't think have you? The
Uh-uh.
Jerusalem cricket? Years ago, I had an Australian Shepherd dog named Dakota. He was an amazing soul. Dakota could wake me up from deep sleep just by staring. Yes, okay, like, what? I would be like, "Oh, no, what are you staring at? Stop." Right? Like, that would freak me out. I'd be like, "What are you doing?" About this insect, they have a mating sound where they boink their body rapidly on the ground, sounding like drumming. Oh, that's crazy. Way back when a member was dying and wait solemnly for days during these somber silences, this drumming was sometimes heard, mistaken for a grim reaper strumming his fingers impatiently. Oh, I see. Okay, so maybe it could be something or somebody. Okay, what if it's the neighbor? Okay. Like if it's the neighbor coming in to be like, hey, knock, knock, I'm just checking on and, trying to
Okay, but
check
what
on
does
my
he leave?
neighbor. Huh?
But like, okay, if it's the neighbor, like, why does the neighbor leave before you open the door, though?
Well, because she's like, "Oh, they're probably sleeping. I'd rather just go."
Oh,
But
okay, okay, like,
you can hear her like crying, like, "Oh my God, I hope they're okay." I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I mean, let's just
And
believe
then,
that, you know.
yeah, and then like you take too long to open the door, so she just leaves. Like it could be the
Yeah,
neighbor, but here's the thing: why is it always a female? Like, why can't it be the guy neighbor, right?
yeah,
Like, I don't know. See, it could go. It could go different ways, but all I know is do not come to my house at night sounding like you're crying because that is crazy. But we're not Irish, so I guess.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how Irish like that. Is it Irish people?
yeah.
Like they can like live with that, like, oh my gosh, like
I
having that.
know.
But it could also be like a kind of like for us, like when we have superstitions.
Yeah.
When we think that something means something, like what's one of our superstitions, Eileen?
Um.
Like the owl. If you see like an
Oh, yeah,
owl,
yeah. Things like that.
that means it's a brujo or a witch coming to take you, or I don't know, do something to you. So I guess I can see it in that sense, but still, like, it's creepy. It's creepy all the way around. All right.
Uh,
Do you have another one?
yeah. So, at first, I was rather annoyed that there was a stranger on my property and almost called out to ask what she was doing here trespassing. Then a freezing chill hit me. It surrounded me, and it felt like the coldness of death. There was not a sound, no bird sang, not a leaf rustled. I continued to watch the woman in spite of the fact that fear was creeping up my spine like a sack full of spiders. She seemed to be young, but I couldn't really tell for certain because I could not see her face. And she seemed to be very sad. Then, to my amazement, she vanished before my eyes, fading like a mist. I sat there dumbfounded for a moment, and then the realization hit me that I had seen some kind of ghost. I was still feeling that freezing cold, even though it was around 80 degrees. I was shivering. I decided I'd had enough contemplation and my quiet spot for today and ran back to the house, my mind racing crazily with what I had seen. So that was one story.
Okay, but he didn't say that nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't hear it scream, then you're good? Or like, do you have to hear it make a sound? Or is it just the apparition itself, like, that tells
um
you? Because, like, that there's stories like this in Mexico where
yeah, I feel like there
somebody
is.
comes knocking at your door and it's like warning you that death is coming, right? But I
Yeah.
don't remember what creature it was that people in Mexico believe. Um, but yeah, like I've heard stories like that before. I don't know. It's crazy.
Here's another one. I was standing next to my bedroom window. We lived in an apartment that was on the fifth floor. The window faced out into an alleyway. It was dusk when the crying started. First, it sounded like a newborn or a cat crying. Now I knew my neighbors and did not know of anyone who had a newborn, but it was an alleyway, so I thought it probably was a cat. But the crying changed into a young child crying or sobbing, and it was the saddest cry I had ever heard. I tried to lift up the window to call out to the person crying. I thought it was a Tommy Kavanaugh next door. I yelled out because I could not see anything because there was no light and it was dark by now. There was no answer, just crying. I yelled out, Tommy, is that you? Are you okay? Do you need help? No answer, just more crying. The sobbing changed again to a woman's sob again. Heartbreak sounding sobs coming from an unknown source. My mom came into the room and the crying stopped. I said to my mom, don't you hear that crying? It sounds like someone is really hurt. She said, I don't hear anything. She was in the living room. The apartment was not that big. She should have heard the crying. She looked at me very funny and shook her head. When she left the room, the crying started. This was not a crying that was from someone being physically hurt. It was a crying that someone was just told the worst news possible and her heart was broken. That's the only way I could describe it. The crying stopped when I went about my business. 3 days later at 5:30 in the morning, my father's sister called to tell him their sister Kathleen had died. She had leukemia.
That's so sad, dude.
Wow, man.
And you think it's like because he thought it was like the neighbor?
Yeah,
But
he
see,
thought it was
and
like the
that dude,
neighbor.
have you heard cats cry? Like, they
Yeah,
sound like babies sometimes.
look, I'm not trying to think about it, man, because like the their sounds are scary, man. Like they're like loud.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I know it's the cats because there's always like a lot of cats, but
Eileen
like
has, like, how many cats? How many cats do you guys have?
man, like about 7.
Because they, like, rescue litters.
Yeah, and they
All the
you
neighborhood
know,
cats come to your house.
they do. So yeah, you can hear them whenever they're like, fighting out there, things like that.
Mhm, and then when they're, like, crying, like, screaming, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They do sound like babies, right?
Mhm.
They do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Why do you keep looking to the side? You're freaking me out.
Hey, dude, stop. Okay,
No, because 'cause
don't.
you're always looking. What are you looking at?
No,
Like,
I'm looking at the comments.
oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because the comment section is right here, so I'm
No,
looking
you
at
look
that.
the other way. You look the other
Dude,
way.
stop, man.
Yeah, why you keep turning that way?
Stop. Cause I'm low key scared. I'm high key scared.
Alright.
I'm glad I'm like on the last story.
Oh, you are? Okay. Here's
Uh,
the last story, you guys.
so it says, see, every woman in my family has experienced the cry of the banshee except me. Apparently, there is an awful howling that just radiates through the entire house and even outside that is so loud and terrifying it makes you want to flee. It's supposed to be the banshee howling over someone's soon to be demise, from what she told me. My great grandmother's grandmother and mother have all experienced it at some point in their life. When my mother experienced hers, she was home alone at the time, and she said it was almost like a horrible wolf crying, and it was so loud, and in any room of the house, it seemed to follow you. She told me how she went through the house, the basement, even outside to try to find where it was coming from. Finally, after an hour or so, right before my grandmother came home, it stopped. My mother waited outside for her, terrified, and explained to my grandma what happened. My grandmother was very calm about the whole situation and explained to her how our family is cursed with the cry of the banshee. A few days later, my great grandmother died. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I'm
Nathaniel's talking to you,
scared.
Eileen.
I don't want to hear anything.
He says it sounds like scratching, Eileen.
Oh, over here? Well, I'm hoping it's my dog.
It's probably Juice because I heard her like shaking something.
Yeah, I have Juice right here.
And you have Sky too?
Yeah, Sky's over there. She was shaking a
Oh,
little
that's
bit
what we
ago.
heard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
she was laying down and she got up and she was shaking. No, I don't want to think about nothing. I'm just glad I heard the neighbors
he said,
talking.
nah, just making it up. Yeah. Your neighbors be freaking you out though sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you see that window where Eileen's standing or sitting? Tell them about that, what the neighbor said about that window.
So, the neighbor, he kind of comes home late night, like almost every night, especially like, during the weekends. And the other day, like, I guess he was pulling up, these curtains were kind of like pulled back, and he said he saw something with glowing eyes that was
Mm,
looking at him, and he was like really scared. And
mm.
he like came and told us the following day. He's like, "Oh, I saw this." And we're like, "What? Like, that's scary." Like, we don't want to, first of all, I don't want to know. Like, if you're
Yeah, yeah,
seeing
we
something
don't
like
wanna
that,
know.
like, I don't want to know. I don't want to like get scared, but um, after careful like thought as to like, hey, what could that,
After careful evaluation?
yeah, like we really had to like analyze, hey, what could that possibly have been?
Dude, don't lie, it was you standing there trying to freak him out.
No,
You're like, "Oh, if he
no.
comes again late at night, I'm gonna scare him."
And that was the day I was really sick, remember? So I like,
Yeah.
hey, that's my dog, you heard her?
Dude,
Hey,
something just straight up fell.
hey, stop, no.
Dude, like, it sounded like a frame fell.
Hey, nah, man, nah. But the neighbor,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, so after we
So
thought about it,
you evaluated?
yeah, I evaluated the situation. And whenever like I leave the house, the dog likes to jump up from the couch onto the windowsill, and she likes to stare outside like every time she
Mhm,
hears a car. So like if it's in the day or if it's at night, she's always there
mhm.
staring, and I'm like, dude, it was the dog.
'Cause that's what my mom said. She's like, "It was straight up the dog." But that makes sense too because dogs have glowing eyes. If you
Yeah, they
shine
do.
light, their eyes will
Mhm.
glow. So that makes
Mhm.
sense that maybe that's what he saw.
Yeah.
But he didn't say how tall it was, right?
No. He just said he
Yeah.
saw something, and like it was like glowing eyes.
Yeah, like that's creepy. But so what do you think about this creature?
No. I don't want to know if there's some. I'm hoping it's
Uh,
just the neighbor looking out,
hey,
right?
the neighbor's always around. He's a chismoso.
Yeah, but I heard the neighbors over here, like I heard them kind of talking. So,
What if it's not the neighbors?
hey, stop, man. Like stop.
No, it is the neighbors because they like to stay up late out
They
there.
do, especially on like Fridays. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll like chill and do like a fireside and talk. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
so
like I mean
go ahead.
overall, like I mean, I didn't really know about this, folklore. Um, I had heard about it, like I have heard of the name before, but that was
Mhm.
like on a show, and they
What
kind
show?
of remember it was on Charmed, like they had like an episode
Oh yeah.
like about one of them, and like she would like cry, and I remember now that they had like leprechauns too. I
Mhm.
think it was on that episode. It was like a I guess like a festive episode, I guess.
Mhm.
But that had been like the only time I had heard about that, but I didn't really know like much about it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
interesting topic.
I wasn't sure what it was either. I've heard of it and I knew that it appeared and but I didn't know what it was. But when I looked this up, I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. Like, I don't know, it's kind of scary. But no, it's sad. And it's the same thing like my
Yeah.
mom says, for us when we hear that bird, it kind of freaks
Yeah.
you out a little bit because especially for me, like I hear that bird a lot throughout the years living in this house. Like and it's always seasonal. So it's always in a certain time of the season that the bird comes and I can hear it chirping away. And it just creeps me out because of mom had said that that's what that bird represented in Mexico for us. And so I don't know, man, like
Yeah.
we've had family deaths. But I don't associate them with that. I just feel like it's just I don't want
Yeah.
to associate it either, but I do feel and I would pray, I would pray when I would hear it. I'd be like, "No, like do not let me feel this. Do not please keep everybody safe." And but yeah, we've had major deaths in the family and it's pretty crazy and it's scary and it's sad. Um
Yeah, it's very sad,
but
but,
I feel like it's part of like
yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
It just gets you thinking, it always gets you thinking oh, maybe it was a warning, maybe it was this. And then also they have this thing of like three people dying back to back,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Um that death comes in three or something like that. I've heard a lot. And I was like, no, I don't no, stop.
Yeah, so I'm
Stop with
thinking
that.
it's, like, mostly, like, cultural, you know?
It could be like cultural, I agree. And also like the folklore and like just tales that get passed down and people believe that that's what it is. But no, I don't want to. No, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
good. um yeah, but it's sad. Anytime somebody passes, it's just so sad. And um yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think it's tragedy comes in threes. Yeah, something like that I've heard.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy sad. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is just um, a coincidence? Could it be real? Could it be just maybe something you hear? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know. You guys can write it here or just leave it in the comments. But yeah, that's all we have for tonight. I know it's a little bit late. But yeah, we were planning on doing it earlier, but then, we get busy with other things and then we just leave it for the end. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that showed up and thank you for commenting. Thank you for saying hi.
Yeah,
And
thank you everyone for coming and saying hi.
yeah, and scaring Eileen. But yeah, we appreciate all of you and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe and yeah, and pray. Pray that everything turns out well. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a good night. Oh, wait, there's a comment before we go. Oh, somebody said it's real. Wait, somebody said, oh, yeah, it's real. Hey, from the UK.
Hi.
Thanks for sharing. Take care. Yeah. Thank you guys. It's all go watch Leprechaun. Yeah, I've seen Leprechaun. It used to scare me. Okay. Like, no. Great show. Thank you guys. Have a good weekend. All right. See you guys next week.
Bye
Bye.
everyone.